I got asked to do the talk.
You'll need to unlock your microphone first.
Siri. And so I started thinking about like what I want to talk about that's maybe in addition to or something thought-provoking that's not like, you guys already know so much, probably more than I do. And so I've been thinking about how, in my personal life, I've been thinking about like how can I add to like the traditions that I got here, because I grew up here. I like went to CFO, you know, I've lived in California my whole life, so very like Western upbringing, like post-enlightenment, very like, my parents are very like thoughtful, intelligent, and, my mom's an educator, and my dad's uneducated, but he's no, so I had a very classical like Western tradition, and I grew up in the church, right? And so I've been kind of thinking about like, and I went to Westmont College, which is a Christian college, and I got a history degree. And which my dad said there's no future in it. But anyway, all right, enough of these jokes. But anyway, but I was thinking like for myself, how can I like kind of expand on my sort of like Western Christian thought, and how can I be like open still, and how can I continue to learn? And so I've been doing a lot of reading about like Native American spirituality, Jungian psychology, which is sort of, it's all sort of just more mysticism. And there's tons of mysticism in the church too. And so I found myself like gravitating towards James. And so that's kind of where I sort of like dug in. And so anyway, that's kind of, my talk is going to be derived from that. But to go back a little bit and to look at my notes, just been kind of considering where I have been stuck in the past, and for me it's always been like mentally. I've always been like too much in my thoughts, and like I talked about the Western tradition, we're very much in that vein of like thinking, and systematic theology, and how can we do all these things, and what's the right thought, and you know, all this discourse and stuff, which is great, and I love words, and I love all that stuff. But also I found for myself that it's not like very satisfying ultimately, and there's the tendency for like anxiety and depression when we overthink, and then there's a tendency for like the compulsive behaviors when we have that overthinking and we want to get out of it. It's like, oh, I'm gonna drink too much or eat too much or do this just to make your brain stop, right? And so for me, I found that the best thing for me to do is to take action. And so that's kind of where, that's where I find satisfaction, is in enacting my faith and doing, like being of service and doing all those things. So that's what led me to James, which apparently they say he is one of the siblings of Jesus, and this is written like 40 to 50 years after Jesus' death by his, one of his younger brothers. And so anyway, a couple highlights. James 1:22. I don't have a Pew Bible, but you guys can follow along if you want. James 1:22. So it's right after Hebrews, almost at the very end of your book. And it says, "But be doers of the word, and not merely hearers, who deceive themselves. For if any are hearers of the word and not doers, they are like those who look at themselves in a mirror. For they look at themselves, and on going away, immediately forget what they were like." So, and then it continues, ... Let me skip ahead. And then 27. "Religion that is pure and undefiled before God the Father is this, to care for orphans and widows in their distress, and to keep oneself unstained by the world." And so we know what caring for orphans and widows means. We could argue for millions of years what keeping oneself unstained to the world is, but it's just that call to action, which I really responded to. And I feel that when I take action, I feel better, and I feel like I'm closer to what God wants me to do. So that's what I've been thinking about. And then so we're going to keep going here. Chapter 2, verse 18. "But someone will say, 'You have faith and I have works. Show me your faith apart from your works, and I by my works will show you my faith.'" And so that's just, it's another highlight. I'm just going to keep going. I don't need to do a commentary on every verse. verse, but these are the verses I want to highlight. And then James 3:13. There's only 5 books in this little epistle. It's my favorite at the moment. All right. Who is wise and understanding among you? Show by your good life that your works are done with gentleness born of wisdom. So to me, that's kind of what I landed on, is there's all these brilliant things we can say and debates we can have, and, what are we going to heaven? What is heaven? What's the most, all these things, which are fascinating, but they can cause you to become lost. And there's a brilliant saying in recovery that's, you can't think your way into right acting, you have to act your way into right thinking. And that for me is the cue, just just be of service, call your friend, clean your space, make a good meal, go visit your friend in the hospital, compliment your spouse, encourage your children, whatever the disciplines are for you. When you take those actions, then all that anxiety and depression and stuff, that will dissipate, and you'll start to, your brain will follow your body into the light of the Spirit. So those are really the things I want to highlight. I don't have much more to say, really. Then that's what I want you guys to take away from this little talk, is what is practical that we can do this week. For me, I was at work, I shared about this person that's having a hard time at work, and so it makes it hard for us. She's kind of difficult to be around. And so I was sitting there thinking this and that. And I took my own advice, and I went outside and I called my friend and I said, "Hey man, how are you doing?" And just got out of my own thoughts, and I got out of my own hamster wheel by taking a little action. So those practical things, that time to meditate, whatever it is for you, if it's exercise or going to a yoga class or listening to a podcast or whatever it is, I think God wants us to feel complete, and he wants us to express our humanness and to walk in the light. And for me, that always comes from action, and then the thoughts follow. So that is my talk.
Yeah.